Karen, can you tell me what actually got you interested in applying to the grad program at Ashurst?
I applied for the grad program at Ashurst through the summer clerkship application process. During that process, I learned a lot about the different firms that were available, and Ashurst stood out because it's one of the top law firms in Australia, and it is also an international law firm, which was particularly interesting to me.
Can you give me a sort of high-level walkthrough of the application process to the grad program at Ashurst?
The New South Wales Law Society sets specific dates for the clerkship process to occur. Each firm may differ slightly in the application process, but at Ashurst, we firstly did a written application, which involves answering some questions about yourself, providing a CV, and also providing a cover letter. We also completed some psychometric testing. So that's some numerical questions, writing, and also literature. The second process, if you get your first round interview offer, is that you will go to an information evening where you'll hear from some partners and lawyers at Ashurst about what it's like to work here. You'll get to meet your graduate buddy who will teach you sort of some tips about how to get through your interviews and just answer any questions that you have, and then you will attend your first round interview. If you get through to the next one, that's the second round interview. After the second round interview, we'll have a sort of a casual cocktail evening where you get to have one last chat to the lawyers, to the partners at the firm, figure out if Ashurst is for you, and then you get to receive your offers and also provide your acceptance if you choose to come.
What was probably the hardest part of the application process to the grad program at Ashurst?
I think for me, the hardest part was actually developing the confidence to speak openly and proudly about my abilities during the interviews. It's sometimes very hard for people to talk so highly of themselves, but I think it's something you'll get used to, and it's also a very important part of the application process.
What was probably the trickiest interview question that you got asked during the grad application process at Ashurst, and how did you handle it?
I think one of the trickiest questions you can get asked at Ashurst and get asked anywhere really is, what is the biggest challenge that you face in the workplace and how you overcame that challenge? And I think it's also very hard because people find it hard to talk about what they didn't do so well in. But I guess I was quite open with my response. During my interview time, I had actually recently had some trouble at work because of how busy it was, because of competing priorities and deadlines. It became hard for me to actually meet all those deadlines. And so I talked very openly about it. I also explained that the way to get through this is to try and utilize your time management skills as well as you can. Make sure that everything you need to do, at least know you need to do, and also communicate very openly with your work providers about the work that you have on your plate and your expectations about whether you can actually get through everything. Because if you can't, it's their job to reallocate the work and make sure it gets done.
What do you think was probably the number one thing that got you successfully through the grad application process to Ashurst?
What helped me get through the application process successfully was to actually be my honest self during my interviews. Because what I realize now that I am at Ashurst is that people go to interviews, or interviewers go to interviews looking for people who they want to work with. So you want to be someone who comes off as very easy to talk to, someone who's enthusiastic, and someone who is excited for a career at Ashurst. And I think I was able to convey those feelings well in my interview.
After getting hired into the grad program at Ashurst, what did your first few days, weeks in the onboarding process look like?
When I first joined Ashurst, we had several days of induction for the whole cohort of clerks. And what that involves is you get a bit of an introduction to the firm. You get to hear about what the firm does, what the different teams are in the firm, the things you might expect to be doing as a clerk. You get some tips about how to do your best as a clerk. And also you get to hear from a lot of the partners at the firm who might come and talk to you about the work that they do. The induction sessions were very important because it allowed us to learn the very basic but very important practical things about working at Ashurst. So that includes how to access the file management system, how to use the email system, how to make phone calls, all that sort of stuff.
Can you walk me through a day in your life as a grad at Ashurst, and what does that sort of look like?
It differs a bit for every single person. For myself, I tend to log on at around 9 a.m. Firstly, you check and respond to any emails, you check your calendar for the day to see what's coming up. If I'm in the office, I try to message a friend to go and get coffee together. You have quite a bit of focus time to get through the work for the day, but then scattered throughout the day, you might have some meetings. So that could be team meetings where you catch up with members in your team. You might have some training sessions, which are very common for graduates. And you have also catch-up calls with your team and perhaps some updates from partners during the meetings as well. Then we have lunchtime. Again, I try to message my friends to get lunch together, more focused time to get through your work, and then we head home.
What's probably the coolest thing you've worked on or participated in so far as a grad at Ashurst?
The coolest thing I personally worked on was an airplane financing deal in which I was able to work directly with a partner in my team at that time to help a company purchase an airplane, essentially. It was quite a large loan, so it's quite different to your standard bank loan. And I was able to participate in all the client calls and assist the partner directly.
What type of careers can a grad role at Ashurst lead to?
There are a lot of things that you can do after you get those basic skills as a grad at Ashurst. You can either continue as a lawyer at Ashurst or in any other private practice. You can look at becoming in-house legal counsel for almost any large company that has their own legal team. You can also consider switching over to become a lawyer for the government, or in fact, you can become a lawyer anywhere else or any other pathway you'd like, because I find that legal skills are very applicable across all areas.
What learning and development opportunities do grads at Ashurst get access to?
There are so many learning and development opportunities at Ashurst, which is probably one of the most valuable things about being a part of this firm. As a graduate, you get to participate in very structured training called the Activate program. And the Activate program teaches us about a lot of basic legal skills across all different practice areas, whether it be litigation, banking and finance, intellectual property. You'll get educated about the basics in every area. You also get educated about basic legal skills, like legal research, which are very valuable now and moving forward in your training. Apart from that very structured program, we also have team-specific training. So in my experience in the intellectual property team, the team organizes specific training about areas of intellectual property such as trademarks, patents, copyright, and the same applies to every other team. They will organize their team-specific training. You also receive direct mentoring and coaching from the lawyers who are around you. You get allocated your own buddy, your own supervising lawyer, and your own supervising partner. And these are people who will always be willing to assist you, answer any questions that you have, and provide you support throughout your career. Lastly, I wanted to mention that Ashurst has a very good CLE program, so that's continuing legal education. And that's a requirement for all lawyers in Australia, which allows you to remain qualified as a practicing lawyer.
As a grad at Ashurst, do you use any sort of remote work from home or hybrid type model at all?
So at Ashurst, we have a very good flexible hybrid work model. Although you are always encouraged to come to the office to meet your colleagues, Ashurst is quite understanding of everyone's circumstances and understanding of the fact that people do enjoy working from home. Personally, in my team, we have very flexible arrangements. People usually come into the office 2 or 3 days a week. And work hours have become more flexible too. So you can start a bit later in the day if you have something to handle in the morning. If you want to head home a bit earlier and continue working from home, a lot of people do that as well.
What would you say is your single best piece of advice for anyone wanting to really nail the application process to the grad program at Ashurst?
I think you should become very familiar with your own strengths and even your own weaknesses, just so that when you do get asked about it during your application process and during your interviews, you're not afraid to show off about yourself. You're not afraid to talk about yourself, and you're able to frame your strengths and weaknesses in the best way possible so that the employer will be able to get to know you as the person that you really are.
What's the coolest fringe benefit that you get as a grad at Ashurst?
I think one of the coolest things that I was lucky to experience this year as a grad was to attend the team's offsite. And what an offsite is that you get to go usually to a different state with your whole team, all expenses on the firm. And during that stay, you get to socialize with everyone, you get to do team planning activities, you get to participate in non-work related activities. such as wine tours, which is what I got to do. Some people chose spa day, some people chose like a pool day, some people chose a bridge climb. So yeah, the offsite was very fun. We got to spend time with our team members outside of a work environment.
What's the number one reason why you would encourage other grads to apply to the grad program at Ashurst?
It's hard to say a number one reason, but if I had to give one reason, I would say it's the people and the culture at Ashurst. Obviously, it depends for each person. Some firms will fit you better than others. But for me at Ashurst, I find everyone to be very welcoming, everyone to be very willing to help. People work across teams all the time. You're not siloed in your team. You get to work across all practice areas with different people. And I think the firm really commits to making sure that people have a good time at the firm and we feel supported. People will check in with you. We have mental health and sort of employee care programs. So yeah, I'd say people and culture is the number one reason.